And we're waiting. Okay, it shows connecting. I'm going to go ahead and go live on Facebook. So if you're watching a recording of this, we're a little behind today, so it's only a couple minutes to fast forward if you're watching the recording. Okay, so we'll start here in about 2 or 3 minutes. But looks like things got replugged in. So what happened over the weekend? Let's see. Hope you all had a great weekend. We had a good weekend here too. I have a new monitor because my last monitor died, sort of. When a monitor starts giving you a headache, it's time to get rid of it, right? And it's not the glasses. As you can see, glasses still work. And anyway, so time for the other monitor to go. So I had to reset everything over the weekend, all these crazy plugs here, and good to go. Pretty excited. Twitched yesterday with Lovely and got to test out my system, make sure that it was up and running, you know, all that good stuff. So hi everyone. So we're just hanging out, getting started. Oh, project for next week, sitting here on my workbench. Yeah. Yes. I say that, but hold on. I'll be right back. Okay. And suddenly I have forgotten all my sizes. Let's see, 1/2 inch and 3/8. Okay. All right, here we're gonna get started here in just another minute. Getting my head together. Oh, already eventful day. Checked on the septic yesterday and it is flooded. What the heck? It's a 3-year-old septic. How is it that we've had maintenance out here on that septic 3 times since April? And now they want to replace the motor too. I'm like, really? You guys are the ones maintaining the septic and this is how it's going to go? Seriously? Anyway, so I'm going to get my head out of the blank hole. That's outside. Okay, the bleep hole. Okay, so shall we get started? You ready, honey? Hi, everyone. Hello. It is Monday, October 13th. This is week 30th. This is Q Talk Live. I'm Q from Gray. And today is Minimal Metal Monday. On Mondays, if you've been following along for the last 30 weeks, we are doing projects that are complementary to this book. Okay, let's see if we can do it this way. Oh, there we go. To my book that was published back in February, March of this year. And the book is really based on 5 ingredients to make all these designs. And apparently we're up to, I don't know, let's see, 30, 35 plus everything in the book makes 55 projects. So we're up to about 55 projects that you can do with simply 18 gauge, 16 gauge wire, a couple of jump rings and some solder, which is really cool. So that said, what's coming up this week? Let's talk about this week for just a minute. So on Wednesday, we're starting up Step-by-Step Surprise again. It is Step-by-Step Surprise. Oh my gosh, I just totally lost my train of thought. It's not Luster. Oh, The Sparkle Within. So it's a 2-parter. So if you're still interested in joining that fun, you can still get a kit. So just reach out to us. All the details are on the Facebook page, or the Facebook Q Talk group page, and it's in the description of this video. And then at the end of the month, we have a departure too for a step-by-step surprise, something that is not jewelry oriented, and it's called Ornamental. I wonder what that one's about. Anyway, they're all surprise projects. So if you are ready to roll the dice and see what you might get, you can register and order your kit. And let's see what else going on this week. So that's Wednesday coming up, and then on Friday we have the new Zoom. It's the Nova pendant, And then, of course, what else do we have? The Nova pendant. I don't know. I can't think. Next Monday, we have the paisley earrings, I think. If not, it'll be the paisley ring. One of the two. But it's, a two-part project just for fun. Today, what do we have? We have the cornered bracelet. Just something simple, to the point, and let's just make squares today. So let's go over everything that you need to make this happen. You're going to need a bench block, that's for sure, but as much as I say that, it's sort of optional. I like the extra flair in the wire by hammering the corners. I didn't even hammer all the corners. I just hammered 2 corners because it gave it a little bit of extra texture. Okay, so you'll need a bench block if you're going to do any kind of hammering. Of course, if you're going to do any kind of hammering, you're going to need a chasing hammer. Multi-looping pliers, because we're going to make our own jump rings today. That's always helpful. You can always use a mandrel if you have a mandrel. Okay, some flush cutters. That's always your friend, because when you're cutting wire, it makes life a hell of a lot easier. A student file, because we need to get those ends filed perfectly for soldering. A square AccuLoop plier is very helpful with all of this. If you don't have an AccuLoop plier, you can also use a chain nose or a flat nose, depending on what you have. But it's a little bit harder to do without these tools, without these gadgets, but you can definitely do all this project with simply some hand tools. A ruler will be helpful today too. And if you have a square wood mandrel, this just happens to be, I don't even know what this is from. It's from a frame of some sort that I had. It's a 1/2 inch wood square mandrel. This will also make life a lot easier today if you have something like that. Your square bezel mandrel is also helpful if you have a square bezel mandrel. So that should cover most of the basic tools. Of course, because we are soldering, you will need a soldering setup, okay? So, and solder. As far as materials, 18 gauge wire is going to be the entire project today. No need for anything else, because we're going to make our own jump rings too. Okay, so whether it's sterling silver, brass, gold filled, or copper, it's just straight up 18 gauge. You can also mix metals if you want to. As you can see here, I have two squares at each link, so you can do one of each color if you wanted to. If you want to mix it up a little bit, and you can also patina this if you want to, or you can leave it bright and shiny. The last bit is a tumbler. We are chain making, so tumblers are always great for chains because it helps polish everything, all the little tiny bits and parts up nicely. Do you have to have a tumbler? No, it just makes life a lot easier. If you don't have a tumbler, what you'll do is you'll hand polish the whole entire piece with some steel wool, and a polishing cloth will bring it up nice. Okay, so that's my story there. All right, let's jump in and get started. So I'm going to go through several processes as to how to make a square, okay? So the first one, of course, the easiest one out there, is to go ahead and just, oops. Oh, did I screw up? I think I screwed up. No, I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to use the 18 gauge wire, and I am just going to bend it around, oops, bend it really, really snug around a 1/2 inch wood mandrel, just like that. Okay. And depending on your bracelet size, you're going to need, I don't know, somewhere, I can't remember. I think it was 8 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 squares. 7 to 9 squares is really what it boils down to. So just keep spinning like this until you get all the lengths that you need. Okay, pulled that a little tight, but we'll just snip it. All right, so we'll snip it on the side, not on the corner, because trust me, you want it on the side. The reason for this is because if you cut it on the corner, then that corner is going to look different from all the other corners. So you always want to snip in the middle. So here I'm just going to snip this off and take off that beveled end just a little bit. And if you don't have great pliers, or I'm sorry, great cutters, then go ahead and pull out your file and file it. So we're just going to file this edge just a little bit, like so. And we're going to move them together like a jump ring to create a square. You see? Just like that. All right, so that's my first one. I'm going to set that aside. If you do not have a square mandrel, especially a 1/2 inch, it's fairly large. Not many people would have something like that in their arsenal. Is you would have to measure. So what you would do is, let's straighten this one out. Let's take out my nylon nose. What you do is you would mark your wire and then start bending on that. Okay? Actually, I'm not going to bother with that. Let's see. Take out your Sharpie. And let's mark the wire. So depending on how big you want this to be, again, you don't even have to use the sizes that I'm using. You can use any size you want. You can have smaller links if you want to. So what I'm going to do is I am going to mark this actually at 3/4 inches back. But from there, from every 1/2 inch, I'm going to mark at it. I'm sorry. From that first mark, I'm going to put it at the 1/2 and start marking that just like so. Okay. You'll be doing this quite a few times because remember there's 4 corners to every link. Times 8 means you'll be doing it, what, 32 times if you're doing 8 links. So we just do it like that. Okay. I do realize that the first section is longer than the other sections, but that's okay. So I'm going to take out my flat nose. You can do it with your chain nose too, and I'm going to bend it right at the mark. And I'm going to do the same all the way down the line to create my square. You see how I did that? I overlapped it right there. Okay? So you're going to bring that in because they're sort of creating a spiral of sorts, right? And you're going to keep working it that way. So here I'm just going to cut it right in between, no big deal, and I have my square. Okay, so I'm slightly off. You know, doing it this way, it works, but it takes a little bit of massaging to get it to be really nice and square. So you can see that. And I have an overlap, so I'm going to go ahead and trim that. And I'm going to use my flush end so I don't have to do it twice. See, my flush side of my cutters are to the side that I'm keeping. And I'll pull that aside. And maybe you need to file, maybe you don't, okay? And we'll just work that together like so. Okay. And there's my second one. Done deal. That would be the easiest ways to make a square. If you wanted to and you had a square template, you can take out the square template and use that and just start making your square around that template. That's another way. Frankly, I don't find squares are a bit challenging for me because I can never get it perfect, but anyway, so there's how you make your big squares. The small ones, you can do the same exact thing by marking your wire, and it's at 3/8 of an inch instead of a 1/2 inch, so it's a little bit smaller. Or you can pull out your handy dandy square AccuLoop pliers. So I'm going to go ahead and put this right in here. Oops, down at 8 millimeters. And we're just going to bend it around, just like so. Okay. And we're just making squares. Again. Oops. Here we are. And I didn't do a great job, so I'm going to show you how to fix that. You can see it's not really great. So I'm just going to take out my flat nose and I'm going to put it in there and squeeze on the wires. See how it just totally flattened it out for me? So then I don't have to do much more than to bring those ends together to get my square. Slightly off, slightly like a rectangle, but that's okay. Again, it takes a little practice to get a perfect square. Obviously, I still need some more. All right. And then we're just going to turn these in like so. okay? And if you notice my end is slightly off, you can see that it's sort of puckered, right? So we're just going to put this in with the joint in the middle of the flat nose and squeeze down, and that gets it nicely perfect together. Okay, so you'll make a bunch of those, one for every single one of the links that you need for your length, and one extra one for the clasp. Got that? So if you're making 8 large loops, you're going to make 9 small square ones. I'm sorry, 8 large squares. You're going to make 9 small ones because the small one is for your toggle clasp. Okay, so there we are. I have other crud on my block here. All right, let's go ahead and solder these. So if you're doing this in silver, go ahead and use hard solder. I am doing copper today, so I am going to use copper solder. And you know, I don't want people to think that I only work in copper. I don't. I really work mostly in silver. But frankly, due to the cost of silver these days and because of COVID, I'm trying to keep things on the cheap right now. And that's why I use a lot of copper. Because frankly, what am I going to do with 65 projects sitting in a drawer, right? I know. Don't say it. Don't anyone suggest that I sell it. Don't say it. Just don't. I hear you out there already. Okay. I don't literally hear you, but I hear you. Okay. So here, we'll just move that down. And notice I'm just putting a little bit of solder on every joint. Yes, I like to use copper solder paste and actually solder paste in general because it is just so easy to apply for projects like this, as you can see. Okay, so just a little bit of solder on each joint. Take out your torch, and if you're doing silver, make sure you heat the entire piece and then the joint so that the solder flows evenly. We're just doing copper, so you can just put the heat right on it. Okay, maybe not. Oh, something going on here. My torch decided not to start working. Oh, there it is. It just needed encouragement. Okay, so we're going to put the blue tip right on the joint. Again, if it's silver, heat the whole thing like so. But this is copper, and we only need to put it right directly on the joint, just like so, until it flows. And I'm waving it back and forth to get the solder to flow evenly between the joint. Okay? You don't need to do this. People do this all the time. No reason for that. Just gently heat that joint. Boom. There's another one. Remember, when you're soldering, always keep a pair of tweezers or a tool in your hand that will keep you safe. Okay, there we are. Done and done. So you can see. Okay, 1, 2, 3. You can go ahead and pickle this at this point. And you know what? I'm going to admit it here. You know, I sort of screwed up. You actually want to use 16 gauge and not 18 gauge. I did make it heavier. So there you can see it's a bit heavier. Sorry about that. If you actually downloaded the instructions, I'm going to make that correction and reach out to you. But you want to use 16 gauge. My bad. I'm going to go ahead and go with it. The thing is, if you are going to use an 18 gauge, I would probably start smaller, because it'll be more rigid for you. Okay? All right, so here we're going to go right in here, and you can go ahead and pickle it at this time, or you can hammer it. I'm choosing to hammer it. Okay? And I'm just hammering on a bench block with a chasing hammer, about half of it. 2 corners to about halfway. And I'm going to do the little one too. A lot of people are fearful about doing this because they worry that they're going to break the solder joint. Well, let me tell you, if you did this correctly, then your solder joint won't break. So if your solder joint does break at this point, it's probably a good thing because it won't break later on. You'll just fix it and know that it was a problem from the get-go, right? As I finish these, I'm going to throw it in the pickle. I have warm pickle on the side here. So So when you're hammering, be sure not to dip your the face of your chasing hammer, because you'll make little dents in there and thereby weaken the wire, especially if you're doing 18 gauge wire. You don't want to do that. So you want to make sure that you're hammering really nice and flat, no tipping of the hammer, okay? So there we are. So you can see nice flattened edges. I think you can see that. Can you see that? Oops. Can you see that? Sort of, kind of. It sort of flared out a little bit. It gives it, like I said, just a little tiny bit more texture. We're going to put the last link there into the pickle. And then the jump rings. Definitely going to use 18 gauge on the jump rings. And I'm going to pull out my multi-looping plier. And we're going to make jump rings. Okay, so 2 sides of jump rings. Here's why. You want smaller ones to attach your toggle, and you want larger ones to attach your links, okay? So we're going to start with the smaller ones, and we're going to go into the second largest size, which is 3 millimeters. So it makes a 3 millimeter ID jump ring. And I'm just going to turn this about 4 times and create about 4 jump rings. Okay, so we're going to go right down the middle. Now that I have a nice coil, oops, I'm going to go right down the middle and snip. And watch my jump rings go flying. And that's how we get jump rings, okay? And then you're going to do the same at the third largest size, and that's 3.5 millimeters on the inside diameter. And we're going to make jump rings. So the question is, if I'm using 16 gauge for the links, would I use 18 gauge or 16 gauge for the jump rings? You can do either, but I would use 18. Just because 16 is a little heavy to work with to make something this small. That's all. But you can use both. And you know what the other thing you can do too? You can hammer those jump rings. It's a nice look. There we go. Making a bunch of jump rings. And as you can see, okay, 2 sizes of jump rings. Your jump rings will likely have a bevel on one end, so I'm going to just snip that off so that the ends come together perfectly. And again, I'm using a pair of flush cutters to do that with. Otherwise, you'd be sitting here filing. And of course, if you have a jump ring maker, that becomes a different animal altogether. We're not going to get that fancy around here. So while I'm doing this, hey, I don't know if any of you are on the Halstead Bead newsletter, but I want to give them a shout out because they mentioned Virtually Ever Crafting in their newsletter this past week. And that's pretty exciting that, one of these big companies is noticing what we're doing out here. So anyway, had to share, give a little applause. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to fix these 2 and just snip off that beveled end. Only one end was flush, right? Okay. So, almost there. And then, of course, we're going to make our own clasp. That's why we have these little jump rings. Okay, there we are. Set that aside. And let's go grab the pieces out of the pickle. We're going to use our copper tongs to pull our pieces out so you don't burn your hands and you don't get your hands in acid, which is not a good thing. And then you don't cross-contaminate, because remember, you don't want to put any ferrous metals into your pickle. There we are. Okay. Done and done. And then next thing you're going to do, very simple, is you're just going to connect these, right? Ooh, 2 pairs of pliers. I do like using my bent nose for doing jump rings. So the first one you're going to put 3 into it, and then the next one just 2. You know, I didn't make enough to show you. So, whoa, hold on. I'm just going to pull this out of here. I'm just going to open some of these up. Okie dokie. Okay, so here you go. You put 3 on the first one, and then on the next one, you just grab a little one, a big one, and then another big one. And you can see how that's working there. You see? And then you keep repeating until you have an entire bracelet. Right? Right. Okay. So, pretty sure that makes sense. Let's move on. Let's finish up with a toggle. How do you make the toggle? So all you have to do is, because we are using a small link here to make the clasp, as you can see, you can see this is going to be your clasp. Okay, all you have to do is make the bar. All right, so we'll go ahead and grab some wire, and this you definitely want to use the 16 because you need the stability in it. Okay, so how do you measure the toggle clasp is always a question. I'm sorry, the bar end of a toggle clasp. So you want basically twice the size of your loop. Okay, so if this loop measures at, I will show you, if this loop measures at approximately 1/2 inch, you need about 1 inch is what they usually say. Personally, I think that is a little too big, so I go to 1.5. Okay, so I'm going to go to 3/4 inch. So depending on who you talk to, some people say double, some people say 1.5. I'm going with 1.5. So I'm going to cut 2 of these, and I'm going to flatten them on 2 bench blocks. I'm going to straighten them on 2 bench blocks. Okay, let's see. It's a little bent. So I'm going to flatten it out like so, and then I'm going to roll it. Do my little rolly trick. Okay, so here, just going to put it right on. I'm going to roll it straight. Okay, so that one's definitely straight. And there you go. See how straight that is? Cool. All right. We'll solder these 2 together. And since they roll around, I'm going to use my honeycomb block. Actually, I'm going to do this so you can actually see what I'm doing. Check that out. Nice clean surface. Put these 2 on. And you can do a 3rd one too if you want to. It's a look, you know. Sometimes I do 3, sometimes I do 2 for the bar, but I just want it a little bit more stability. And that's why I'm using 2 and not just 1. All right. So I'm going to put some solder right in between there. Tiny little bit of solder right in between, just like so. Okay. And we're just going to heat that right up. Just right down the line. If you're using silver, you want to go ahead and use hard solder. So it's just going to heat that until it flows all the way down. Like so. Done deal. Let's quench that. So you can see, done. And actually it's clean enough that I can go ahead and solder my jump ring on there. Okay. So I'm going to solder a jump ring right on there. And we'll solder it right to the center. Make sure that you close up your jump ring. Okay. Wow, this one's not cut right, so I'm going to fix that first. Okay, there we are. Not the greatest way of closing a jump ring, but it wasn't a perfectly round jump ring. And then now I'm really going to close it up. Okay. Now I'm being fickle, sorry. Okay, there it is. I'm gonna grab that jump ring, and with the opening, I'm gonna solder the opening to the bar so that I don't have to solder it closed. This will solder it closed for me. Grab a tiny little bit of solder, like so. You can see that, and put it right in the middle. And I'll trim this afterwards. Okay, so there we are, right to the middle. Okay, so heat the whole thing, and let's solder that joint right there. Okay, that's it. If you're doing silver, you want to go ahead and use either medium or easy solder at this point. Because this is copper, you want to give it a second to think about it and to set, because it does not like, it takes that much time just to set. There we are. Okay. Quench that on the side. Ooh, check the joint. Not bad. Not great either, but we're going with it for now. Here we're going to trim this off. If you have any sharp edges, do go ahead and file that off. And let's see, where's my file? Here it is. And we're just gonna file it and remove any sharp edges. And notice how I'm sort of going like this around the edge to create sort of a slight bevel edge and to remove any sharp points. Okay, we'll throw that in the pickle. If you want to hammer this, you can. Okay. Another thing too is if you're using the 16 gauge, wire, you can also do a little bit of texturing on that. Not a ton, just a little bit. The 18 gauge is a little bit more iffy. Okay. So we'll reattach everything here. So one at a time, we will attach these jump rings. Let's see. Hold on just a second there. Keeping the sequence. Let's see, where are we? We are here. Whoa. We're here. So then we will attach a large one to the large with a small one. So basically to every jump ring there's 3 pieces, right? You're going to end with a small square for the rest of the clasp. So you can see, I know it's a little fickle of a piece. You end with a small one. So this will come back around. You'll put the toggle on this end. It'll come back around and meet here. You see that? Okay, let's go check on that toggle piece. So the key here is to make sure that you add extra jump rings on the end, okay? Because if you don't, there won't be enough room for this to go all the way in and through, like so, okay? It'll get stuck with just the one. So you're gonna have to add extra jump rings. And you wanna use the smaller jump rings to make this happen. Okay. So I'm just going to add here at least 3 jump rings, if not 4. Another thing too is when you're trying to figure out your length and you're sort of in between sizes, and if one link is too big, adding one more link unit is too much, but adding or but taking away one is too small, then you go ahead and make it a little too small and add extra jump rings. Okay? Just like so. So I'm going to go with 4. 3 plus the 1 makes 4. Like so. You see that? So it gives it a little bit of room to work with so that when you put it into the clasp, you have all this room to pull it through. You see that? Okay, so from here, you can patina it if you like. You can take out your brass brush or your steel wool and clean it up. Look, it brightens right up. Or you can go ahead and stick this, see, I told you it was not a good solder point, and sure enough, it fell off because I didn't do a great job. Good thing it did this now instead of on somebody's wrist. All right, we'll go ahead and solder that back. But anyway, so you can put it in a tumbler if you prefer. That's an easy way to do it. Okay, so here's what's sort of funny. The jump ring did solder closed, so I can't open that, but it didn't attach the bar. It was hanging by a thread. I thought I was going to be able to get away with it. Clearly, I didn't. I know, I got called out. Yes, someone's watching. Someone's making sure that I keep it honest. We're going to try to keep it honest. Well, okay. I didn't try too hard to keep it honest, but somebody kept me honest, right? All right, so we'll put this back on here and solder that. So, while I'm soldering that, hey, I just want to say thank you to everyone who placed an order for the custom hallmarks or custom stamp. You know, we did the little stamping demo, what was it, 2 weeks ago? And yeah, it let everybody know we actually do custom stamps. So if you need one, you still can get one. But just want to say thanks for responding. Really appreciate that. All right, so we're gonna put this, butt it right up to the middle there. So those who ordered, it's already going to go out. It should be here this week and going to be right back at you. So less than 3 weeks delivery right now. Okay, so we're going to heat this up and try to get that soldered this time. Oh! Heat the whole thing. Again, if you're doing silver, you're going to do either medium or easy solder. Why are we struggling today? There we are. If you're doing copper, it's just straight up copper, because remember, copper solder does self levels, so it makes it a lot easier. But there we are. I still feel like it's sketchy. Let's check it. Quench. Oh, not so sketchy. Someone was asking about the stamping video. It is available on the Q Talk. Actually, it is also available on YouTube. So it's the Q Talk Facebook page. If you're wondering if you're watching from elsewhere and wondering where all you can see these videos, they do remain there for, I don't know, indefinitely. Just saying, until, I don't know, somebody decides to tell me that they want me to take it down, or that Facebook decides to change their policy and starts deleting this stuff. But considering we are in week 30, that means we have at least, dear Lord, 60 videos out there at least, I'm guessing, because if we're doing this twice a week, there's got to be at least 60. I think we're closer to 65, because in the beginning we were doing more than twice a week for the first couple weeks. Okay, so here we go. There it is again. Let's clean that up just a little bit. Like so. So I am currently feverishly working on November. I know, November. Did I say November? I meant November. November schedule, and that should be up pretty soon. I was twitching yesterday. And so was able to finish 2 projects yesterday for November. Let's see, where are we? We're going to attach you to you. Here we are again on the opposite end. Put this on. Okay, maybe not. Jump rings are not playing nice today. All right, yet another pair of pliers in my hands. Okay, we shall try this again. So yeah, it looks a little awkward on the opposite end, just to let you know, okay, that this one actually hangs down like so. So it is actually part of the larger unit. So don't get confused by that. But there we are, and yay! So I went with 1.5 times. Again, some people like to go with double. I think personally, double is too big. We're just going to go with 1.5 times the width of what you need. Okay, there it is. Yippity-doo-dah. Any questions? If you don't have any questions, that's it. By the way, thanks for all the happy anniversaries. Really appreciate it. It's been 20 years. It's been great. And we had a great dinner over the weekend. We'll never go back to that restaurant, but we had a great dinner because the company was good and we sat there making fun of everybody else. You know, just sort of fun. Anyway, so thanks for all the happy anniversaries. Really appreciate that. So if you don't have any questions, that's it for me today. So again, next week, Minimal Metal Monday will be either the ring, the paisley ring, or the paisley earrings. And we have a couple Zooms coming up and step-by-step surprise. Definitely give step-by-step surprise at the end of the month, the Departure 2 ornament. Departure 2 called Ornament. It's a step away from jewelry, but it's fun. It's gonna be a good one. Here's a sneak peek for next month. I finished that yesterday. For the October Minimal Metal is that one. I think we're going to call it, yes, I think you can see it. It's a 3-tone, right? Brass, copper, and silver. And I think it's going to be called Rainbow because it looks like rainbows to me. All right. Well, I hope you all had a great weekend. It's a good start to the week, despite the septic issues that we're having. We're going to have a great week this week. It's fall. The leaves are changing colors, and it is beautiful outside. So thank you for hanging out. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your subscription on Twitch. I really appreciate it. Hi to everybody on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. Thanks for hanging out with me. We will see you on Wednesday for Step-by-Step Surprise. Gosh, the sparkle within. I know. It's been a day. Okay, so I might be twitching later on. Check back or, sign in for notifications and they will tell you because I need to do some more work for the rest of October. Have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.